Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Big Brother Canada 10 Roundtable podcast. I'm your host, Taran Armstrong, and this is the podcast where we talk about everything from the feeds, and we rate the players based on how well we think they're doing. This week, we are joined by Aysha. How you doing, Aysha?
I'm doing well. I've really been enjoying these. Usually the seasons are pretty planned, but there's been so much that's happening that this podcast specifically is so necessary. So thank y'all for doing this.
Plus, I feel like, I'm sorry. I'll introduce myself. I'm here. I'm Melissa. Anyway, so I thought maybe I could get away with that.
You squeezed past it, didn't you?
I could sneak past that one. What I was going to say is that it also is interesting because it seems like in previous seasons, we typically have some players who are consistently pretty good, some players who are consistently pretty bad. And I feel like this season we've had a lot of fluctuation with people. I feel like at one point we thought Moose was bad, and then we thought he was good, and then we're kind of wary on him, and it's just everybody's kind of going back and forth, and you really don't know from week to week who's going to be a good player and who's going to be a bad player. I just find that interesting.
It's definitely been an interesting season. I mentioned either today or the other day or someday. The days blend at this point. This is probably the most difficult season to cover that I've experienced in my many years of Big Brother coverage. There's just so much going on all the time. The house is so fluid; it refuses to really lock in. We are this is only week 5, but it's definitely been an interesting ride to this point. We'll see where it goes from here, but this is why we're here on the Roundtable. The Roundtable is the place where we can catch you up, give you the big picture sort of overview of what's happening in the week, and try to give you the most basic understanding of where everybody lies. So let's try doing that. Let's first give a quick recap of the events here. Jess won the HOH after Kyle was evicted unanimously. Jess decided that they wanted to go sort of with the Geno and Jace side of things and target Herman and Moose, the two people that have said their name the most consistently. And so they put Herman and Moose on the block, but Herman won the veto, and that meant that Jess needed to name a replacement. Jess ultimately named Tanisha as the replacement, and as of right now, it looks like there is a successful vote flip / blindside planned for Tanisha to be the one to be evicted this week. We'll see where all of that goes, but of course, in all of those events, lots of things happening, lots of things going on. Aysha, how have you felt about the week so far?
I wasn't excited to see Jess win, I will admit. But seeing how the rest of the house has played out, I've been very excited to see that they are sticking to the fluidity of the season, right? Because we don't have it's literally week to week that everyone is figuring out, okay, who do I trust this week? Who do I trust the most this week? Who do I want to go with? Which votes can we get together, rather than, the Savage 7 are going to vote for this person, then the week is over, then there's nothing to watch. So I'm really liking seeing some specific people really have their footing, gain their footing in the game, like Kevin and Josh, and even Helena is someone who, I wasn't too sure what I was seeing with her, but the fact that she has a plan and she's able to, or a plan that is forming, that gives me high hopes for her. If we have to lose Tanisha this week, so sad, right? I mean, I was rooting for her. I like her as a person. I enjoy watching her interact with Summer and everybody in that question mark bedroom. But if she has to go, that's fine, because I would prefer Moose to stay, because I feel like he can do a little bit of something in this game compared to Tanisha. So, I wasn't upset about the vote flip. I'm actually pretty glad, especially because I can't want you to stay more than you want to stay, right? Tanisha, she says she wants to stay, but girl, what are you doing? What action are you putting into place to make things happen to stay? So, I'll be fine with a vote flip this week.
Yeah, I feel like this season is like a little different. I mean, especially because like we've always said that like the most fluid seasons so far, I guess, had been like BBCAN 6 is when you typically like explained it or like described it as fluid. And this season I feel like is even like way more fluid than that, just because like I can't even pick out who's in an alliance with who. I feel like I hear new information or new like groupings every time I look at the feeds or hear about them or look at Twitter or whatever. And it's like, I have no idea who's actually loyal to who. I feel like I thought I knew, but then it's like the next minute Summer's like, oh, like I don't trust Herman and like you should put him up. And like I thought those two were some of the closest people in the house. So like I clearly have no clue what's going on in terms of alliances or who's working, like who feels best with who. And same with like Kevin, I feel like he's working with different people at all times and I never know who he's actually working with. And so I just feel like it's so different from a normal season, which I find interesting because there's really no way you could have like a predetermined outcome. Like I feel like a lot of other seasons we can kind of say, okay, we know it's going to come down to maybe like these 5 people. Now, who from that, like, do we think is going to win, even like starting at the beginning of the season? And I feel like this season, we really don't have that. It could be anybody at this point. I really don't know. And especially with the fact that so many different people are winning competitions, it's way more evenly divided in terms of comp wins. You've got, it's so unpredictable in terms of, an outcome. And I think that is just such an interesting like vibe for the season, and it's making it way more exciting, but also way harder to cover.
Yeah, it's been interesting because typically a cast will have the gamers, which are usually like 4 to 6 people who probably know the show, and they are the people that are going to be gaming hard and trying to make alliances. And sometimes they get snowed into thinking that they're secure, but they're actually not. And then other times they're just they've built a structure, they're able to ride that. And then you've got, a certain amount of people in the house that are like the stable people in the house, the people that you lock them into an alliance and they're set. They're just a reliable number. They're always going to be on that side. And that's how you create a structure in the house, that you use those players as building blocks. And then you have like the wild cards who are, less gamers, but more just like, don't piss me off kind of players. And they can kind of go any which way. The players that have been evicted so far in the game, Melina, Jay, Steph, and even Kyle to some degree, they were all players that were a lot more, minus Kyle, a lot more stable in where they would sit in the house, if that makes sense. Melina, we saw very little from her, so who knows? But she seemed like the kind of player that would make some friends, and then she would be on that side. Whoever friends she made, she would be working with those friends, and they.
Oh no!
That'd be perhaps.
Taran, you're cutting out.
I think I just I noticed.
A Jacob Jones thing going on. I was like about to spin around in my chair and then show I was wearing underwear or something.
Oh boy. Point being, some of the stable players like Steph, and even now if Tanisha leaves, Tanisha's absolutely one of these players.
Yes.
Tanisha is somebody that she's friends with Summer. She's got the people she likes. There are people she doesn't like. And for the most part, she's just always going to sit there. And now she's the one that may end up leaving Moose in the game, who's more of a wild card / gamer, if you knew the game a little more, kind of player. And so you have all of these kinds of these players left in the game who are all very willing to just be like, yeah, I'm friends with you, but I want to be over here right now because that's what benefits me. And so people are running all over the house and they refuse to sit in one place because that one place isn't always the best place, and they always want to be in the best place. And so they're all chasing the best place, which makes the best place end up moving somewhere else. And so they're all running around. And that's where we've been. And somebody asked in the chat earlier, like, what is the most comparable season in the US to this one? And I think it is probably Big Brother 10. At least in the first 5 weeks or so, this is sort of what we had, where there was an initial power structure that was built by Brian, and then it got immediately crumbled. And then these like little pockets started to form as one big thing as they were taking out the remnants of that power structure. And then those bits started to crumble as Dan sort of like poked holes in them. And then it eventually all kind of like blew up into a more solid structure in the second half of the game. That's what we might see here in Big Brother Canada 10. But for the most part, this has definitely been one of the most, as I said, fluid houses we've seen in a while. These people are just made of water, I guess. I don't know.
How iconic, though, like when people ask, oh, which seasons of Big Brother Canada should I watch? You should watch Big Brother Canada 10 and you should watch Big Brother 10 and Big Brother US 10.
Yeah, just any 10.
Any 10. You're good.
Yeah. Although we shouldn't get ahead of ourselves.
I mean, I'm still enjoying it. I feel like I don't know what could happen. You're right. I shouldn't say that. I don't know what could happen at this point, but I think at this point they would have to solidify sides and then shoot at each side each week. That's the only thing I wouldn't like, which I can't see that happening because this house cannot get more than 3 people to get on the same page to say, okay, this is locked in and this is what we're doing. There's been at least one person's like, okay, but I'm kind of locked in over here. So we'll keep this as an option, which I love. I love that it's fluid. I love that these people are here to play the game. I get so annoyed when there's a season where people are acting like they've known these people for 10 years. There's no way they could betray them. There's no way I could go against this person. I'm not that type of person. I don't want to hurt them. When it's like, y'all are all here for the same goal. You're here for the same purpose. So I'm so glad that they all realized, look, you're only here for so much time so you could win the game, win some money. And so behave that way. And I feel like they are, which I really appreciate.
Yeah, and I mean, I said this morning as well. I think another comparable season in the U.S. is Big Brother 3, where in Big Brother 3 there was an initial group that was supposed to be a majority alliance. They were a disaster. They crumbled. You had a secret duo in Danielle and Jason who helped orchestrate some of the chaos and used it to advance their own positions in the game. They picked up one of the members from that initial group and they started using them as pieces. They picked up some of the other outsiders from the initial nominations, like Marcellus, and they started using those pieces. And it was a very fluid game as well, in terms of where the power structure went. And I think we are seeing bits of that here also. And so, these are great seasons. These are great things that have happened in the past. And this has been very fun to watch so far. Difficult to cover, but fun to watch. I hope that it continues in this fashion. I don't think it can forever. I think that if we expect it to be this fluid for the rest of the season, we will probably be disappointed. At some point, it's going to break out and there's going to be one group that is going to come out in the lead and they're going to be sprinting toward the end, right? But the end games are exciting in different ways than this kind of fluidity. And so we'll see if it's able to transition into a fun end game. I think it's a whole separate can of worms, but I do think we have the players for it and the chemistry for it. So I'm excited to see if we get there. But it's been great.
Yeah, I'm wondering if the fluidity has something to do with the fact that the whole house seems to kind of get along or like each other and want to hang out, so that nobody wants to be nobody is intentionally being this is the opposite side of the house. I want nothing to do with them. We need to get them out. And maybe it's more of we all like each other. So whatever benefits my game this week. I don't know. It just feels a little different. I feel like normally you can see people, not hang out with certain people and then target them. And now it's I feel like a lot of the times most people are intermingling in the house. And so maybe that has something to do with the fact that there aren't set groups because everyone's hanging out. I
definitely think that helps. I think that casting is definitely a huge part of it. I think that the chemistry of the season, it's the right mix of people. Mm-hmm. You had Kyle really just destroying the entire playing field, which was hugely beneficial, obviously. And then I think another important piece of it is that you have players like Kevin and Helena and even Josh to some degree who are kind of more of the outcast underdog positions, but they're all playing very hard. And there are other seasons, other situations where the people on the outs, they just kind of roll over and die. That's not really what we're seeing this season, and they're trying to make the most amount of chaos as possible. Kevin specifically, I think, is a huge benefit there. So it's really, I think it's a number of things that are coming together, and it's a lot of these little choices being made by production that a lot of them are things that we've talked about for a long time that I'm sure Alyssa is a huge part of implementing here in the season in terms of competition, equality, again, casting, the twists have not been interfering too much. Like, there are a lot of different things that are coming together to create the environment for this chemistry to thrive, and I think it's thriving.
Yeah, and I think it helps that, I mean, I wouldn't say everybody in the house likes each other. There are definitely people that are annoyed with certain people, but they're not making that a part of the game. Like, oh, I have to get this person out because I can't stand it the way that, the differences that they have, why they don't just naturally get along. But it helps that they're all decent people. I think that's all it takes sometimes, is just to be a decent person and carry that into the house and not get sucked into this world of just like not completely forgetting who they are on the outside world. So I think that helps too.
Yeah. All right, so let's get into some of the decisions made. We mentioned that Moose and Tanisha are on the block now. They will be up for eviction. I did ask the audience, and if you are interested in responding to this survey, you still have about 3 to 4 minutes. If you want to try and get it in, you can find it on Twitter at Armstrong Taran. You can rate all the players. You can give your opinions on some of these questions. I asked the audience, who do you want to be evicted this week between Moose and Tanisha? Because we are seeing this flip come into play. It seems like it's pretty likely to happen at this point, but don't take anything for granted in this house. The audience says about 75% would like to see Tanisha leave, and only 25% would like to see Moose leave. So most good, 3/4 of the audience is on board with this flip. That and I would assume that most of them are on the same page as us in the sense that, like, Tanisha seems great. I wouldn't choose for her to be the person to leave, but between her and Moose, in terms of what they're bringing, and between the chaos of a 5-4 vote potentially, and all the drama that it might entail, I definitely think that there's some value there. I think the biggest thing for me is that it's probably going to do a decent amount of damage to Summer's game, and I don't like to see that. I'm hoping she can rebound, but at the same time, I do like seeing good players in face adversity. So, we'll have to see on that one.
Yeah, it's like Tanisha is like a comfort zone for Summer right now. So the time that they spend just kikiing in the room, Summer's going to spend that time elsewhere, further strengthening the relationships and bonds that she's built in the house. Because, I mean, she's definitely built a lot more than Tanisha, obviously. But I think that it's not going to be like she's starting from zero. So that's going to help a lot. And it's just going to force her to just be more strategic about who she is having these social relationships with. So I think we're going to see good things from her. I think it's actually going to help her game. And I'm glad she's not in a position right now where she's willing to put her game on the line for Tanisha by going all out. She's being Summer. She's playfully Kevin, you're going to vote my girl out, So it's just she's still being so likable and so endearing. So I think that in my opinion, I think this will be a good thing for her.
Yeah, I feel like it's a plus and a minus, because it's yeah, sure, she's losing an ally and also a shield for her, because I feel like people were viewing Tanisha as the bigger threat. So if they were to end up on the block together, they'd probably vote out Tanisha. Who knows what would happen at that point, but they might vote out Tanisha just because they think she's a bigger threat than Summer. So in that sense, it's not great that she's losing her, but at the same time, it's a good thing for her, because like you said, it's going to get her out talking to more people, strategizing with more people. And also they were viewing them as a duo. Now she's not seen as a duo. And a lot of the times when you lose your half of the duo, you can kind of fade back into the background and slip under the radar throughout the rest of the game. So yeah, I think there's pluses and minuses to having Tanisha leave for Summer for sure.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think this speaks volumes for where the audience stands. So like I said, 75% would like to see Tanisha leave over Moose, but when asked who do you want to win HOH next week, the top answer is Summer. That they want Summer to win that next HOH, which is seemingly a double. I don't know what makes it not your average double, but seemingly a double, which will come right off of a potential blindside 5-4 split vote. Summer winning that would be very interesting. Really, anybody winning that would be pretty interesting, but I think Summer would definitely be able to make good use of it. So that would, it's like I said, I think it speaks volumes to where the audience stands in terms of like, yes, I guess Summer can go over Moose, but that does not mean that we're off Tanisha can go over Moose, but that does not mean that we're off the Summer train here.
Yeah, so. just don't put Anthony or Jed in the house and she can focus. Look, I get it. I understand Summer's just how she was flustered. Imagine opening the door and seeing Anthony Douglas. Oh my god.
I false, but my body said true.
Absolutely. Like, I don't blame her. I don't blame her at all. But yes, as long as they're not in the house, she can focus, she can get the HOH, and we can see what she's going to do.
And that's my biggest thing, because my biggest criticism of Summer to this point has been that she doesn't want to win HOHs. I hate when I see good players in good spots say this because they think they don't need to. And then inevitably every single time they end up getting to a spot where it's like, really could have used that HOH. Like, you're losing an ally here. But hopefully this week is the kick that Summer needs to start trying to win these HOHs, because they are hugely important. So I think that's definitely a big thing as well. Kevin, by the way, second place for who would you like to see win HOH, and Betty in third place.
This is business B. Let's get it.
I feel like for all three of those people, it's better for them if they don't win HOH. I just feel like it could go really haywire if any of them win HOH. And I feel
I disagree.
Lately, HOHs have been losing their minds in the house, so I feel like it's just not good for anyone to win HOH.
I mean, that's true. If you play it poorly, yeah.
Right. That's what I'm assuming is going to happen. If there's a curse or something, everybody's just like losing their minds.
Yeah, Kirsten tweeted that like somebody must be pumping gas or something in the HOH room.
I love that. That was amazing.
Yes,
it's true though. It's like, what the heck?
Who put the Maki curse back on the house? When did this happen?
It's back.
All right. So I also asked, and this is a good question to think over as well. Who is the best person for Jess to have targeted for their game this week? The audience does feel like the easy answer is Herman. 66% of the audience said Herman was the right target for Jess, and I am inclined to agree. I think that Herman obviously put them on the block. They've never had a great relationship with Herman, and Herman is probably the biggest threat to Jess's overall game. The real question that's difficult to give out on a survey is like, what was the best way to go about it? How could they have gotten Herman out without sort of like putting them in the position they are in now, which is not necessarily a terrible position, but it definitely has not capitalized on the position and leverage, which is kind of, I feel like, a recurring theme here when I talk about Jess's game, is that they are strategically often, maybe not often, but they are sometimes strategically doing the correct thing, but not getting the most out of it. Because either they don't have the tools socially, or they're just not making the right social decisions. But even though they're making on paper maybe the correct move, they're not seeing the full results of it. And that has been really like hindering them here. Aysha, what do you think should have been Jess's game plan?
I think the easiest, like, wipe your hands clean type of move would have been Herman and Geno. Then you use this time, like they said, oh, people are being forced to talk to me. You can't ignore me. Right. So if you don't have a great relationship with Moose, spend this week building that relationship with Moose. If he's going to be talking to you, then why make an enemy just because you think, oh, that side of the house is working together? No, just focus on, like, continue to be or will start being fluid like the rest of the house, and focus on, look, it's all I could do. 2 people who put me on the block, that's it, right? This just the show of it all, with just Herman just continuing to just twist the knife and tell me who you wanted to put up. Like, that fight didn't have to happen at all. That was so unnecessary. And so I think that
absolutely outside your mind, fam.
yes. I love him. I loved him talking to us then. But it's just like, a lot of the things that happened this week were unnecessary because Jess went about it the way that they did, and things could have just been so simple.
Yeah, and I think when I specifically, like, I think the primary thing they're doing wrong socially is, if you're sort of going to like sum it up into one thing, I think it's this whole notion of them being in power, but still feeling like the outcast, still feeling like the one that is not respected, that is not talked to. And so I think they're approaching all of their social interactions with that lens, the lens that they're used to having, which is I am on the outs. But the reality is that they are in power right now, and they haven't like adjusted their approach to the fact that they are the ones now in power. And because of that, it's rubbing people the wrong way. And it's not working. And it's leaving them in a position where they're particularly vulnerable for fallout. And they also are kind of, trusting some of the wrong people here in Kevin, who is absolutely playing them and playing them hard, and very, very not only willing but planning to throw Jess under the bus at the next opportunity. And he is using them and driving their game straight into the ground on purpose to benefit his own agenda, which is, good big brother. I think he feels a little bad about it. And I think he's probably right that they're probably going to be pretty mad at him about it. But it is what's happening here. Yeah.
Right. It's like, especially with putting up Herman and Moose, right? And then Jess does the thing with Herman about wanting to know his targets, and then does the same thing with Moose, and literally does what Herman feared of telling the people that Moose named. And then it's this public ordeal, because why would Betty not say anything? All she wanted to do was for Jess to say, yes, I'm okay with you blowing up, because it really didn't matter. Betty was going to do what Betty does, and which is be herself. And so it's just like, okay, now you just showed Herman that, like, Herman's going to be like, you think I'm stupid? Like, you think I'm dumb enough to, like, I knew that's what you were going to do. So it's just like, just one thing after another. I don't know what's, because a lot of people will get HOH-itis, but yeah, what's the opposite of that? Of not thinking that you're HOH.
You're not realizing that you have the power and not adjusting your sort of approach because of, I don't know. It's I don't know.
It's new, inventive.
It is, yeah. So that's what Jess is up to. I asked, we can run through some of these as well. The audience, how'd you rate the episodes of Big Brother Canada this week? And the audience gave the episodes a 6.9, slightly down from the 7.1 last week. And I feel like that's maybe fair. I mean, some of the episodes last week were very good. I think that this is probably incorporating the Thursday episode, which was kind of a lame one. I thought Monday was very good. I thought Wednesday was pretty good. But I think Thursday was a bit of a dud there in the middle. But I think overall the episodes have been very, very strong. I again, I compared this season to season 6 of Big Brother Canada, where the episodes just don't do it anywhere near justice. And you can say, oh, what's the closest season to this? I'm loving this, how fluid and entertaining this season is. What's the closest season to this in Big Brother Canada? Oh, it's season 6. If they go and watch those episodes and they come back to you after having watched 30 episodes or whatever, they're gonna be like, you liar. How dare you? That
You friggin' hurt me.
unbelievable. Because the episodes showed none of it. And I feel like the episodes this season have been on top of it so far. For the most part, I feel like they have been really accurately representing what's happening in the house and keeping us, obviously not keeping us on top of like every minor detail that's going on. That would be impossible, but keeping us knowledgeable about the things that are important enough to the story that I think it's kind of making sense, and we're sort of seeing what's actually happening here. I don't want to speak too soon. They could absolutely start shifting in another direction, but I'm excited to see how they edit some of the stuff this week, because they've already set up the Jess and Moose fight by showing the various conversations that were had. They've already set up stuff with Kevin. I think that it's time to dive deep into Kevin's final two with Helena. I think that there's a great edit they can make of last night, Kevin's shenanigans with Helena and Josh, and his pitch about us going to the end, brain trust. I think there's a lot of really interesting stuff that like I feel like it's been a while since I've been like, I can't wait to see how this is presented on an edited show. And I kind of feel that way right now.
Yeah, definitely. I think we've all been disappointed with Big Brother Canada editing in the past, just especially because when the feeds are really good and then it's not shown in the episode and it's kind of just like glossed over and told some other way, it's disappointing. And I think you're right in that this season has been very true to what's going on the feeds. Like, if you weren't able to watch or listen to any of the morning updates or watch the feeds and you just tuned into the episode, we'd all be basically on the same page. So I feel like that's key. And I think it's really important because typically I have to, when my parents watch as like a casual viewer, I have to tell them like, okay, but actually here's what happened. And I hate having to do that. I mean, it's like, it's nice to talk to my parents about it because they want to know, but like, I wish that they could see it themselves and get like the full picture of what's going on. And so I think it's been really great to see. I wonder if they either they like switched up their editing team for like someone who like really cares about it and wants to like show the narrative as it happens, or this season just happens to be something that they can easily put together a narrative, whereas like other seasons maybe weren't. I don't know. But yeah, it's been great.
Maybe it's so fluid that there's absolutely nothing for them to grab onto at all. And so they're just like, I guess we just have to try our best to show what's actually happening.
Going on. Yeah,
I think it's just the
narrator.
Right. I think it's just the Arissa influence. Like last season, first season as executive producer, getting her feet wet. And then this season's like, okay, we fully trust you now. Take the reins. I just like to give her a bunch of credit.
Yeah, if those rumors about Julie are true, just bring in Arissa, whatever.
Oh my gosh.
You can work in the US, work visa.
Yeah. Like there's rumors about Julie leaving Big Brother.
I know
every single year.
Every year. But if she does, Arissa, come on down. The US
make it happen. Get the work visa or whatever.
Yeah.
I asked the audience, how would you rate the feeds this week? They gave the feeds a 6.6, which is down from the 6.9 last week. I'm not sure I agree with this one. I feel like last week, at least on my end, was even though we did have the exciting sort of like flip to get Kyle up on the block, that was like the highlight, and the rest of the week was more like Kyle campaigning a lot and different things shifting around, whereas this week has been a lot of like direct drama regarding the nominations and the fallout from that, the veto, the replacement, now the vote, and on top of all of that, there have been lots of talk about strategy and moving forward, all of that stuff.
But then we have the missing Jess conversations.
Yes, and I feel like if we're trying to account for this rating, it's probably that we are on the heels of a very strange feed outage yesterday, and now going into today, the feeds have been very off and on. I think that's probably playing a part here.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
All right. How would you rate the season as a whole so far? Maintaining there at 7.6. It's the same rating it got last week.
It's pretty good.
Which is very good for the Stock Watch ratings here.
Yeah. Definitely.
And how would you rate the competitions this week? 7.0, up from the 6.9 last week. So very high rating for the competitions as well. I almost gave up on asking this question because it was just like consistently like a 4 or a 5. But people are recognizing that they are liking the competitions this season. So there you go. One more thing.
Yeah,
before
I
we-
really did
Oh.
like that HOH competition, I will say. I think
Yeah,
that I wish they would have gotten a little bit more time, and then maybe you could have
Mhm.
made the questions a little bit harder. But, it just like the rush of only having a few minutes and then not knowing what you were going to see. And like, oh my gosh, these, especially for the fans, seeing that these were legends. And I couldn't believe Herman. Like, I know he had said that he missed Spicy V, but you literally did not go to that. Like, watching it happen was so wild. 'Cause, like, literally that's what it cost. And I mean, who knows what he would have guessed in the tiebreaker, but he did it to himself.
I will say, I think that I think probably what happened is that he heard 5 doors, 4 minutes, and in his head he was like 4 minutes, 4 minutes, 4 minutes, and he got to door number 4 and he was like, okay, boom, all 4 doors. I think that like the 4 minutes kind of got switched, kind of got cross-wired with the 5 doors, which is probably what, and he intentionally like skipped like a downstairs door initially because he's like, I'm gonna go to the big cluster first, and that probably didn't help either. But you gotta be on top of that stuff. You gotta be very careful. Herman would probably not do very well at Amazing Race with that level of detail.
Yeah, I feel like this competition was really great, but I feel like, and this is like very nitpicky because like obviously like I love having the past house guests back and it was great and everything. But if they had done it for like a veto and they had like a clip of the moment that they were showing, like playing behind them or something, and then they like asked questions on like the actual moment rather than like what was on the background, was it stars or moons, like I feel like that would have been more fun for me to watch because like it would have rewarded people who were like watched the seasons and like were like super fans and like rather than like rewarding just like being observant. I don't know.
It finally would have exonerated Moose because they all think he's lying about having not watched the show.
Although they would have been like,
tanked that competition.
Yeah, you threw it. You threw it, Moose. We know
that one.
Yeah, you can't trick us. We know you gave up a chance at HOH just to try and trick us, but we've got our eye on you, Moose.
But I did like how they had the little speech bubbles around Cindy, like with Aysha saying like you were going home or whatever. I promise you you're going home. It's like you had like all these different like speech bubbles from that moment because it was just so chaotic. I just thought it was great.
Yeah.
Well, I asked the audience to rank the players from their favorite to their least favorite, and we have some results. Would you two like to guess who is the top 3? Aysha, what do you think?
Oh, don't steal my answers, Melissa. I'm gonna say top 3 in the right order that I think it is.
You can try for the order, yeah.
Okay, we'll go Summer, Kevin. Ooh, Summer, Kevin, Herman.
That was what I was gonna say. Summer, Kevin.
Oh, of course.
It was. I had my 3. I had them right here.
Oh, right. Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, next time let me go first.
Well, the correct answer is number 1, Kevin.
Ooh.
Overtook Summer this week. Summer has been
Ooh, I love it.
Summer has been on top, I think, all season long. But Kevin just overtook her. She is in second place as of right now. And then third place, Josh.
Okay.
I should have known
saying that.
Yeah.
I just like Herman, so I put Herman up there. Probably.
Right. I definitely would have said Josh 4th, but I just feel like we've been seeing more of the other 3. So it's like, I feel like people might have forgotten, but yeah.
All right. Who's the bottom 3? I can tell you, I'll give you, or you know what? You guys guess, and then I'll give you last week's.
I would say Jess and Marty and Oof, I don't know about that last one. Who else?
Aysha.
I'm gonna say Jess, JC Lynn.
Oh, Jace Lynn, I forgot.
Oh,
it.
and I don't know. I don't know about Marty.
See, I forgot her. That's not a good sign.
Yeah, it can't. Right.
I literally
It
was like, who else is there?
right. I don't think people would say Tanisha. I mean, maybe it's not that people dislike her. I guess she's pleasant, so people wouldn't say she's like not their fave. So maybe Marty.
Yeah, I think they
What-
say
what's-
Marty
what's
because
the
in
order
the
here?
past, people have been saying Marty. Not that I
Yeah.
dislike Marty, but people have been. He's been in the bottom 3 a few times.
Yeah. Last, I would say, last is Jess. Next to last, JC Lynn, and then Marty.
Mm-hmm.
Same exact answers again?
Yeah.
All right. Okay. Well, last week, Kyle was in last place, followed by Jace and then Marty. This week, it is Jess in last place.
How far did she fall? What was she last week?
Last week, Jess was 5th from last. So that was
Ooh,
like
That's a pretty big drop.
9th place.
Pretty big drop.
So
For this wonderful.
Has
HOH.
every HOH been last?
it's
don't think Herman was
possible.
last,
No,
though.
Kyle was last. Or sorry, no. Yeah, Geno wasn't last because Kyle was in last place. Geno was
Yeah,
4th from
okay.
last time.
Geno
Darn,
could
I was
never
gonna
be
say,
last.
how wild if every HOH they just like tank their likability.
Jess is last place. Marty second to last. Jace third from last. So it goes.
Wow.
This is the order: Kevin on top, followed by Summer, then Josh, then Helena, then Herman, then Betty, Moose, Tanisha, Geno, Jace, Marty, and Jess. That is the order. I think people are really high on the Kevin, Josh, Helena connection lately. I think that's they got a big boost from last night.
The fact that it's so unseen by Jess in this HOH, like Jess is putting all of their trust in Kevin and does not realize what Kevin pointed out to us. I'm their number one. They're not my number one. And you would think that you could feel if you were someone's number one. Like you would know that they've spilled everything to you. They're talking to you constantly. They just got Kevin to start they had to say in week 5, I need you to talk to me more. How are you how are you Kevin's number one if you are needing to ask him, plead with him to talk to you more?
Yeah. So let's try and lay down the state of the house here before we get into the ratings. Just real quick to try and set up what we're looking at. With Tanisha and Moose on the block, there are 9 votes. As of right now, Kevin, Helena, Marty, Geno, and Jace are all going to be voting Tanisha out to keep Moose in the game. Then on the other side, Herman, Summer, Betty, and Josh will be voting to keep Tanisha. They'll be voting Moose out of the game. But that does not mean that everyone who is doing that believes in where they're voting necessarily. Because last night, Kevin pitched to Josh that, hey, I think there's a way for us to take Tanisha out of the game without you getting any of the blame. You can vote Tanisha to stay. Tanisha will still go, and we will move forward as a trio. He pitches to Josh that him, Helena, and Josh should work together secretly, coordinating behind the scenes, having eyes and ears in every trust cluster in this game, and operate in that fashion. Josh was very hyped on the idea. I recommend listening to the update this morning, from this morning, if you want to hear more about this. And I also recommend just watching this from last night. It was very entertaining. I'm sure it will end up on the episode. So that's where the core power structure is looking like it might end up, depending on how this week plays out and how the HOH plays out. In addition to those 3 who have been trying to find time to talk to each other throughout the day, it seems like it might be coming together, but we'll see. You also have, of course, if Tanisha leaves, Summer and Betty are pretty closely working together. Herman is obviously attached. Moose is attached as well, but they expect Moose to be leaving right now. So if Moose doesn't leave, then I think who kind of knows exactly where he ends up. He's been campaigning to the 5 votes that are going to keep him. So he'll probably try to play the middle if he can. But he is pretty close with a lot of the people like Summer, Betty, and Herman. Herman, I think, will also maybe try to jump across, which is why it's hard to give a state of the house at all, because given what might happen, people will try to jump over the lines, and then new structures and new things will form. But right now, the sort of the solid group that is voting Tanisha out is that group of Marty, Jace, Geno, Kevin, Helena, and they are looking like they'll be working together for the near future at the very least when it comes to this vote. Who knows what happens after the fact, because, again, with more people looking to jump across, they could easily end up being like, oh, well, now we've got Herman, we don't need Kevin, or now we've got this person. They are all most of them are looking at already dropping Jess and kind of throwing Jess under the bus because Jess was being very wishy-washy in terms of the replacement nominee. We didn't see any of this on the feeds because a lot of it was cut, so it's hard to know exactly what happened here. But Jess, in addition to the mistakes that they were making with some of the other side, but they also seem to be making some mistakes with their own alliance. Marty said that he needed to talk to Jess for 2 hours to make sure that they didn't end up, going with Helena as the replacement nominee, which is wild.
Which would have felt like such a curveball. I don't even know how that was an option. But, and I think back to last season with Ty, Jed, and Beth, and it's just like, they're an obvious trio, right? They were the trio that season. But with Helena, Josh, and Kevin, who's saying, oh, we need to put up Kevin and Josh, or we need to make sure we put up Helena and Josh. I feel like I don't hear any, like maybe someone will put up one of the 3, but I don't see them targeting them in order to split them up. And as we've seen, if the trend continues, 2 people you put up at the beginning of the week, things always change after the veto. So, if that trend does continue, then that'll be great because that could work in their favor because, things always change. So I think if they continue to they solidify it, which they have, but if it continues through the double and everyone goes unharmed, then, it'll be interesting to see how they can continue to keep it on the low.
Yes. So, the state of the house is that there's not really much of a state of the house, but we're trying to give you as much as we can. Seemingly the most solid, relationships are probably moving forward. Summer and Betty now, potentially. You've got obviously Jace and Geno. Marty is attached to them loosely, but Marty's also with Helena and he's also with Kevin. Kevin is with Helena. Kevin's got a great relationship with Josh. Herman is working on Geno. Herman has a decent relationship with Moose. And, it's all over the place. And this is why the house is so fluid. So I'm going to stop trying to stay to the house. Let's talk about the stock watch. This is where we rate the players from 1 to 10 based on how well we think they're doing in the house this week. And I also poll the audience based to get what they think about the house guests here. And then we take these ratings and we use them to update the prices in the stock watch game. So we're going to bring it up here and we're going to get right into these ratings. We're going to start with Betty. How do we feel about Betty? Last week, I gave Betty a 5 because I felt like Betty's position had improved and I was feeling pretty decent about where things were heading. Now, this week, I don't think is the greatest week for Betty. Betty got into it with Moose a little bit. They have made up. That's all fine. But it definitely wasn't like a great thing for Betty's game. In addition to that, losing Tanisha is not the greatest thing either. It could sort of blossom out into something more beneficial if it means that Betty can get closer with Summer and then they can sort of like make a run in that way. But it's not like Betty wants to be sitting next to Summer in the final 2. That would not be a great spot for her. And in addition to that, being Summer's number one didn't exactly work out well for Tanisha either, because Summer's so not targetable that it might just land on somebody next to her. So overall, I feel like this was a net loss for Betty this week, and I think I'm going to go down from the 5 to a 4. I'm still not like super low on Betty. I do think that Betty, she's still in the game. She's still looking okay, but she's also still a person that could end up on the block as a pawn. And overall, the position is just not looking super great. So down to a 4 for Betty. Melissa, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I agree with that. Betty, I think the problem is that like this one incident with Moose isn't that big of a deal in the grand scheme of things. However, it's the impression that she's giving to everybody else, which is that you can't trust her to tell her any information because she's going to go and say it. I mean, Jess told her, like, hey, like, let's not confront Moose about this. I'm just telling you. And then immediately Betty goes and confronts Moose. So, and then, also it shows that she's kind of volatile. You don't know where she's going to go. You don't know what she's going to say. It would make me nervous as a player to work with her. And I think that that's going to be a problem for her moving forward. At the same time, you've got also the impression that like, well, Betty's going to tell you the truth and she's going to tell you like as she sees it and she's not going to hold back. And like, maybe that like brutal honesty, I guess, can be beneficial. Like in terms of people being like, I don't think she's lying to me because she can't. But I think generally I'm a little less, I feel less good, I guess, about her place in the house now that I think people see her that way. I feel like at first it was like just Kevin and her getting into it. And it was kind of like, okay, that's kind of their silly little like rivalry thing. But now that she's kind of gone off and done this with Moose as well, it's not just, confined to Kevin. And I think that people will see that as an issue. So 4 for me.
All right, Aysha, what do you think?
Yeah, so well, first off, the last time I rated Big Brother players, we were talking about celebrity and we were on a celebrity curve. So I had to,
readjust.
Adjust. Yeah. So I'm rating purely on entertainment. So we're going to give her no, okay.
We got a 10.
10 out of 10 right there. So Betty, she's interesting because Taran, you're totally right. She could totally see herself being a easy pawn, but it's like, who at this point is saying, my target is Betty. I have to get Betty out. I have to devote my HOH to Betty. I think they've all just kind of like, her game is just comical to them at this point. Like they all joke about, even Tanisha, they all joke about her in comps, right? And so it's like, she's become such a non-threat that it could help her. The fact that she blows up or like not blows up on people, but she's not afraid to confront people. When she hears her name, that is such an insult that her name could be uttered in the game of Big Brother, right? But then it's like the person, they don't even give her anything back. They won't argue back. They're just like, okay, that, all right. Yeah, that happened. And she wants it to keep it going. But, I just think that it's going to have to be a certain situation that would get her out, where it's just like, okay, I'm out of options, which means I could see her going a little bit further. So because I don't see her in any immediate danger, I don't even see her being like a casualty in the upcoming double. I have to agree with y'all and give her a 4 as well.
So don't pitch my name. That's rude.
Yeah.
Really rude to give her a 4 here. The audience, though, agrees. Betty's a 4. So it's going to be straight 4s for Betty. Let's talk about Geno. Melissa, how do you feel about Geno?
I don't feel too bad about Geno's game. I thought that he would be put on the block this week. So I'm kind of surprised that he's not. And the fact that he's not, I think, is a good sign. I also think that I haven't really heard people say, we need to break up the showmance. We need to put the two of them on the block. And in a house like this, where everybody's kind of super fluid and we don't really have any really strong, solid alliances, like they kind of have one of the strongest alliances in the house just because like they won't go after each other. And that's good for you to have a vote right there. So I think that's a good sign. I thought Geno was going to be in a bad spot, and I thought JC Lynn was going to be in a bad spot as well. And they both don't seem to be in that bad of a spot. Geno at least has a bunch of people kind of wanting to work with him generally. So I think I got to go up to a 6 for him. It's a big bump, but I think because this would have been the week to be on the block and he wasn't. So yeah, got to give him a 6.
There you go. Aysha, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, so my roommate told me coming into this, she said, if you talk about Geno on the podcast, I'll actually listen, because she has never listened to any of my podcasts. So I was like, I'm sorry, it's impossible. He's barely been on the show this week, hardly on the feeds. And so that has to definitely play a part, because he's always with JC Lynn. That's all they do is spend time with each other. And I think about, I think the credit can go to his move last week of not putting Kevin on the block. I think that helped him this week because Jess won HOH. And so Kevin was able to kind of shift, look, this is what I would do. And I think if Kevin had ended up on the block, things could have turned out differently. He would probably view Geno differently. And because Kevin had such influence this week, it really helped. But I know that's kind of like being results oriented, but I think it really did help him this week. But then I have to think about his lack of social game this week, his unnecessary, what's going on with Geno? Is that just dead? What's going on with him in summer? Why can't they continue to just have a great time together? Why does that have to turn into anything? So it's just I don't know. I see people wanting to pull in Geno and JC Lynn because they are numbers, they're showmans, they're okay, package deal right there. But I don't think that's any of Geno's doing, and I don't see him playing an active part in anything right now. So I have to go a 5.
All right. Well, the audience agrees. The audience also went with a 5 for Geno. And I'm definitely not at the 6. I am definitely, though, considering the 5. I think that this was a great week for Geno. I mean, Jess winning and Jess taking a shot and it ultimately falling on Tanisha. These are all fantastic things for Geno. If it had been a lot of other people that had won this HOH, Geno probably finds himself on the block. Mm-hmm. Luckily, though, that's not the case when Jess wins. If Herman or Moose had not won the veto, and one of them is definitely going home, particularly Herman at that point. That's also it's great that he didn't end up on the block, but Herman leaving isn't the best thing in the world for Geno because he's got a good, decent working relationship with Herman. The fact that all these things converged and Tanisha is going to be the person that leaves, that's all very good for Geno's position overall. Tanisha leaving means that Summer doesn't have a lot of other places to turn, and maybe he can sort of lean on that relationship. That's kind of what he's hoping. We'll see if it happens. And the fact that Jess is going to take a lot of heat for this, Marty's going to take a lot of heat for this because Marty's been so involved. All very good things for Geno. The problem is that he is still a big target out there, and a lot of people are still looking at putting him up next to Marty or putting Jace up next to Marty or something along those lines. And all of those shots, like the shot that could have come at Kyle, mean that Geno is either on the block next to a target or a backup target or nomination for them if the veto is won and used, which happens a lot this season, which means he's still not in the best position in the world. I also don't have much faith in him as a strategic player in the game. He is kind of just being used right now by some of the more forceful players to sort of position him in a place where they want him to be. So for me, I'm gonna bring him up to the 5 for now. But I do think that that he is in a position where that he will need to continue to get lucky if he wants to even just maintain this position, because I think that he's going to run out of runway very quickly. And one of his biggest issues in the game is that he doesn't really have any solid allies anymore apart from Jace. Even Marty is more loyal to other people. And so he needs to solve that. And that whether that means Herman or it means, going in another Summer, he needs to find another person that's actually loyal to him, that will actually stick up for him, because if he doesn't, whether it's him or Jace, that shot is going to be taken soon. So it's going to be a 5 overall for Geno. Let's talk about Helena. How do you feel about Helena, Aysha?
She's the one that I'm the most just torn on, because even when we were rating favorite players that the audience rated, I completely forgot about her. But, she pops into my head when I think about Josh and Kevin. So then I'm like, okay, what is Helena doing? Is she playing an active role, or is it just that Kevin and Josh trust her enough that she's being brought into these things? Because is it a situation where if they were to leave and she was by herself, what would she be doing? I don't know. I just haven't gotten a good grasp on that. She knows what she's doing, and like the position she's in is intentional. But she isn't in anybody's sights right now. She's not doing terrible. She's not, running around and causing conflict with people. And, so she's in an okay position, but I don't know. I just don't feel, I feel optimistic because of her allies, but just in her as a player, that's where I'm torn right now. So it's just like, okay, yeah, she's doing better than Betty. And because of her allies, I see her a little bit more so than Geno. Like, so yeah, I know I haven't sold this at all, but I think I will go, I'll go with a 6.
All right. The audience agrees. They went with a 6 as well for Helena. And I think I'm inclined to agree as well. I think that Helena has put herself in an interesting position. She's continued to do well at these individual relationships. A lot of people trust her when they should not. But she is also being put in a situation this week where her vote could expose her game. And that is pretty dangerous for her, especially because I do think we have seen in the past that she is not super great at handling coming out of her comfort zone. And her comfort zone is this individual kind of game. She's going to have to come out of it eventually, and she might end up being forced out of it by this vote. I think she recognizes that this vote is potentially dangerous for her. She's expressed some concern about it, but Kevin has kind of soothed it over. I'm not scared of Summer and Betty. Are you scared of Summer and Betty? No, I'm not scared of Summer and Betty. But she should be. I mean, you should be scared of everyone in this game, and losing that positioning could be bad. Now, I do think there's a way through this where Helena, there's 2 positive options for Helena. One is that she does get exposed, but there's so many other bigger targets to deal with than Helena. Are you really going to waste a week on Helena? That's what she would be selling. And that's not a bad place to be. The even better place is that they kind of get a little more insulated. They pull Herman. They grab Josh and they say, you know what? We're not going to keep your cover, Josh. As long as we have Herman, we already have more than enough numbers. And so now the avalanche starts, and now Tanisha's only getting sympathy votes. It's not a blind side. It's not a split house anymore. That's not great for Kevin's purposes, but it is better for Helena's purposes because she doesn't have to be quite as exposed. That would be good for Helena. I think that's a fairly likely outcome. We've already seen Herman indicate that he might be willing to go in the way of the numbers. So we will see how that goes. But overall, I think that her position has definitely improved from last week. I think that being positioned with Kevin is a great thing for her. This new connection to Josh is a good thing. And overall, the momentum is moving up and forward for Helena. So it's a 6 from me. Melissa, what do you think?
Yeah, I agree. It's a 6 for me as well. I think that this vote is gonna, it could either go really well for her or really terribly. I think that I think it'll go well for her just because I think you're right in that the connection that she's now making with Kevin and Josh, this potential, like if it's real, if this is a potential like close alliance moving forward, that could be really good for her. If it's not, and she just like votes in this way and everyone realizes that she's done this, it could be very bad. So I think I'm leaning towards this is good for her, but it really could go either way. But yeah, I think the fact that both Kevin and Josh see her as an asset and want to work with her is very good for her. So yeah, that's why I'm giving her a 6.
All right, let's move on to Herman. How do we feel about Herman? Well, the audience feels decent about Herman. Last week they gave Herman a 6, and this week they again gave Herman a 6. So there you go for Herman. This was definitely looking like a shaky week here for Herman as he was on the block and probably the target for a decent period of time. It looked like it might have shifted to Moose prior to the veto competition, but given that we thought that might be the same with Tanisha and then it ended up landing on Tanisha, I have to assume that it would have landed on Herman as well, or at least very well could have. So this was definitely a risky week for Herman. He did win the veto. He did survive. He has been trying to rebound. He's been pushing this new narrative of keep the stronger players in. That obviously benefits Herman, and it would not benefit players like Helena and Kevin. But it is what he's pushing, and he's had mixed results from it. Marty and Jace have kind of been like, about Herman. Geno, though, is a little bit on board, which is good. The problem is that Herman does remain a target with Tanisha gone. If players like, even Kevin or Helena at this point, certainly Marty, even if like somebody like Jace won, like Jace is looking to put up like Betty and Herman or something like that, Summer would be in the mix. It would be some combination of Herman, Summer, and Betty for a lot of the people that are currently voting Tanisha out. Even if he gets on board, that might be the case because where else are they going to shoot? He's going to have to do a lot of work to make sure that he's safe in this double because this double is very dangerous territory for Herman. I think a lot of people, even if they weren't inclined to target Herman, would take a look at a double eviction. They win that HOH and be like, you know what? This is a great opportunity. Am I really going to waste it on Betty? Am I really going to waste it on Summer when they're not winning comps? I'm going to take this shot at Herman. So I think he's in a lot of danger because of that, but I do still really enjoy him as a player. I think that he is still working his butt off in that game, and I want to see him continue to slither on through.
I'm actually just going to slither through.
So I think that ultimately I have to go down from the 6 last week. I think his position is similar in terms of his level of safety, but he is losing an ally this week. He's losing a little bit of that insulation, and he has not made enough progress on the other side for me to feel comfortable with his level of safety moving forward. I do still feel like he can bounce back, but I am really worried that he won't even be here by the time we talk next week. So it's a 5 from me. Melissa, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, same. I think that, yes, he is staying. Yes, he won the veto, but I think the fact that he was put on the block in the first place is not a good sign. I think the fact that Summer was one of the people to say you should put Herman on the block, I don't trust him. That's not good because I really did see them as like being pretty good allies prior to this. Now they don't really want to work together. Or at least Herman doesn't want to work with Summer. So I feel like that's not good. And then, obviously the double dangerous for him. People clearly see him as a threat. It's a precarious spot for him. I really do think that if he has some time to kind of create some like more stronger relationships with people, like he can do it. I do have faith in him as a player, but I do think that this double, like Taran said, is the perfect time to just like quickly get him out, and that's dangerous. So I hope he survives, but yeah, it's a 5 for me.
All right, Aysha.
Yeah, so I'm actually going to give him a 6, but for a different reason than Helena. So with Helena, I have faith in her allies. Herman, I have faith in him. I feel like, he single-handedly saved himself this week with the veto, obviously. But then even being on the block, I have confidence in him that he's going to be able to build up enough numbers and talk to the right people. He doesn't give up. He's someone who, if he's on the block, like he's going to fight for it. So I do understand he's still a huge target. We can't take that away from him. And it is a huge fear going into the double with him, unless he wins. He did so well in that comp, just 1 point off from going into the tiebreaker. Like he could have won it. So he's totally capable. And I know winning out is definitely not an ideal strategy, But I think he's doing little things that could help with having relationships with the right people. Like he is solid enough with Geno. He's made a 1 week truce with Marty. It's these little things like, hey, okay, we can't commit to this huge alliance, but let's see what we can do. And I think his work as a salesman has, helped him see like there are many ways you can negotiate moving forward in this game, which people just think, oh, I'm not in your alliance. You're voting me out. That's it. So I love his fight. So that's why I have to go with that 6.
All right, let's move on to Jace. Let's talk about Jace. Last week, I was pretty hard on Jace. I think rightfully so. This week, Jace has definitely stepped up in terms of game talk. She's been talking to more people. Her relationship with Jess is a large part of why both her and Geno are safe this week. And that can't be undersold. I think that she's also made some decent headway with players like Helena and Marty and even Josh to some degree. She is getting out there and she's talking to people this week. This has kind of been the case of Jace's game, though, is that like 1 week she's on, the next week she's off again. And that is like difficult to give her I don't have a lot of confidence that she's going to be able to keep this up. And she does remain a target and somebody that could go on the block for a lot of people in the house, or at least a few people in the house. And the connection to Geno is not helping her. In fact, it's just putting a bigger target on her back right now because of where things are positioned and how people's relationships are leaning. So for all of those reasons, I am going to go up on Jace. I think I have to credit her for, again, keeping herself and Geno safe this week on Jess's HOH. And I also have to credit her for talking some more, being in on a vote flip where she is a part of a group that is going to blindside the other side of the house, or at least that's the intention right now. So for those reasons, I'm going to move up to a 4 on Jace. I gave Betty a 4. I think Betty has a better chance of winning the game. I think Betty's in a better position overall, but this has been a down week for Betty and an up week for Jace. And so Jace is getting a little bit of a boost from some of the actions that she's taken specifically this week, whereas Betty is kind of getting a little bit penalized for some of the actions that she's taken this week. So they end up at the same point in this week, but it's not a scenario where you should look at Jace and Betty and they're like, oh, they're both 4s. Like it's just specifics to this week that's made that happen for me, at least. So 4 from me. Melissa, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm between a 3 and a 4. I feel like I think you're right in that this has been a good week for her, but like, I don't feel like she's in a good spot generally. And I think also like, I don't know if I have much faith in her game at all. I think also it's interesting because it does seem like between her and Geno, people want to target her, which is weird. And also, I think that I feel like she's an easy target in that like she's kind of forgettable in the house. And so it's kind of just like, well, let's just get her out. Like, that's fine. Like it takes away a number from Geno, but we're not actually touching our precious Geno or whatever. But we'll get out her because that, eliminates a number. Who cares? And I could see that being a scenario, which is, not great for her. I think though, however, that she has come pretty close in these competitions and I think she like could win one. But that's for a future week if she makes it there. The tough thing for me is that it does feel like even though she tends to do a lot of the heavy lifting, it does feel like Geno is carrying her in like the relationships category. It does seem like people want to work with Geno and JC Lynn because she's with Geno, not necessarily like people want to work with her on her own. And so I'm a little worried about that for her. But I think if I'm giving Geno a 6, I feel like I have to bump her up too. So I think I'm going to give her the 4. And we'll see.
All right, Aysha, what are your thoughts?
With JC Lynn, I can't get over her blaming Kyle for that vote flip.
I know. I keep thinking back on that clip because it was like shared online. I was just like, oh my God.
You really suck at lying.
Like, it makes me have no faith in her game that, like, that was her response, is like, blame Kyle. I don't know.
Exactly.
And then also
Literally.
not trust Geno, like, be like,
Yes.
who's against me? It's like, I don't know.
Exactly. It was like, yeah, Kyle, and then turn right back around, and the one person that you trust in the house, you blame Geno. So it's just like that's the kind of stuff that she's capable of. So it doesn't make me have high hopes for her, especially if there's a situation where we know Geno is a big threat, right? So if he goes, she's gonna be lost in the sauce. She's not gonna know where to turn. If her only turning point is Jess, we see like that's not great, right? And so because of that, I have to go ahead and give her the 3.
There you go. Well, the audience is at a 4 for Jace. So there you go from the audience. Let's talk about Jess next. Jess here as our HOH. And Melissa, we are starting with you. What are your thoughts on Jess?
I don't feel like this was a good week for Jess. And for clarification, like, they're not telling her about this new plan to vote out.
They are in on the plan for the flip. Or at least that's the implicate, because they were in on, they were they were kind of the ones to initiate it, but then they sort of flipped because of a conversation with Moose. But then when the feeds were down, I think our sort of interpretation is that they came to their senses and flipped back, and they are fully on board to take out Tanisha. Yeah.
Okay, because that's what I wasn't sure on, is like, is this, because I feel like if that's the case, then this is a real bad week for them. But I think if they are in on the plan, and this isn't just like a total HOH blindside, then it is a little bit better. But at the same time, I mean, they're making enemies left and right. They, like, didn't quite handle everything so well this week, especially with, Moose is not going to want to work with Jess moving forward. Like, Herman is not going to want to work with Jess. I feel like Jess has lost so many potential allies out of this. And this could have been the chance for them to really create bonds with people and create, maybe a little grouping or a small alliance or something. And instead they trusted Kevin. And Kevin even said that, Jess is not their number one. And, I don't think putting their full trust in Kevin is a great idea. So I think this is just really not great. However, they are, surviving the week, obviously, because they're HOH. So that's good, considering that they were a potential to go home previously. But I think moving on to the next week, there's really nothing there for them. And I don't see people, clamoring to work with them. So I just feel like it's not great. I don't know. I think there might be a situation where there are bigger fish to fry in the house than Jess, so they might not immediately be in danger, but I don't think that they've got any sort of foundation coming out of this week. So that makes me concerned for them. I don't think they're totally dead in the water or anything like that. So I am going to give them a 3.
All right, Aysha.
Yeah, Jess is like trying to shove a square peg in a round hole by forcing this sides concept. Like, they're playing this game like the house is in sides. That's how I have to approach it. If I make enemies on the other side, that's okay, because I have my side. So I should be good. When it's like, no. That's not how it is. And because of that, you found yourself in a pickle where your number one ally has other situations going on in the house. And so because of that, they're going to exit this HOH reign and feel like, oh my gosh, I don't know what's going on. It's back to Kevin saying, we can't be seen talking. No one knows we're close. And then Jess is just going to continue to feel like an outsider. And so it's kind of like, outsider-itis instead of the, that's what Jess has maintained through their HOH reign. So yeah, I'm going to have to also agree with the 3.
Yes. Well, the audience is with you both. They gave Jess a 3, and it's a tough spot because, I think that I would say again, like, I think strategically Jess is not that far off the mark, and it's difficult because most of the time when I'm criticizing a player, it's like, hey, you don't know what you're doing. Like, you don't know the game well enough, or like you're making a mistake strategically that like you really shouldn't be making, but Jess does have a decent idea of what should be done. They're just not executing very well. And they don't have the knowledge base to be able to execute well either, which is making the execution even worse. And when you look at an HOH win, it really should be improving your standing in the game, especially for a player like Jess, as they said that, hey, now people have to talk to me. Now I can use this to build my relationships and advance my position in the game. And that's what should be happening. Jess should be coming out of this week in a better spot than they came into this week. And if they're not in a better spot after having won HOH, then this is a failure of an HOH. So right out of the gate, it's not a better spot. And to make matters worse, I think it's a worse spot than they were in before. Because what they have done is they have allowed other people to solidify and build things that are benefiting them, primarily Kevin, but also, because of some of those machinations, people like Geno are a little bit safer. People like Helena even a little bit safer. And Josh is in some ways benefiting, in some ways hurting, but and even like somebody like Moose is in like a slightly, as long as he survives, a slightly better position than he might have been in before. Like other people are benefiting from this more so than Jess is. Jess is hurting from this. Jess has lost the trust of more people. Jess has increased their target level. And on top of that, everything we said about just like the social mistakes that they're making in the game this week are not playing well for them. So despite the fact that they know what they should be doing, that's not enough. You need to be able to execute as well. And the execution is not there. And their game has gotten worse from this HOH. So I have to agree that they need to move down from a 4 to a 3. And that is Jess. Let's talk about Josh. Josh, who got nearly a 7 last week, but Melissa blocked it. We will see what happens this week with, we'll start with Aysha. Aysha, how do you feel about Josh?
I love what I'm seeing with Josh. I thought Josh was going to be extremely passive in his gameplay, but I think that is just what he's trying to give off in the house. Like, he doesn't want to come off as, like, we already know they don't know he's a doctor, right? If he comes in super confident, showing he's brilliant, then obviously he's going to be a target. But I think he's managed to decrease the target that is on his back, and or at least like minimize it a little bit. And, creating these strong bonds with Kevin and Helena, and then also having a great relationship with Summer, and even though Tanisha may be on her way out, but at least having an okay relationship with Betty. And I just think that Josh has found himself in a position that he has enough social relationships across the house, and then creating this solid 3 that he can move forward with strategically will greatly benefit him. And I think he's kind of crept his way out of being, an easy pawn. I could just throw Josh up because he's already been on the block. I think that people don't feel that way anymore. And I think that's a great thing. So I'm going to have to go with a 7.
A 7 from Aysha. Well, the audience is still down at a 6 for Josh. They have not quite gone up to a 7. And last week I did give Josh a 7. I felt very good about Josh. However, this week I can't say that I'm as high on Josh as I was last week. There are a lot of concerning things from Josh this week. First of all, prior to last night, at the very least, he had been sort of going back to his introverted ways. He had not been talking as much game with people, and it was showing. A lot of people were talking about how they didn't feel cool with Josh anymore. They didn't feel like Josh was with them anymore. They felt very sketched out about Josh, and that was not great. Josh is also, and it shows in the way that, like, Marty, who was very tight with Josh, is like, I don't know if we can trust Josh with this vote. Jace, who's talked to Josh, is like, I don't know that we can trust Josh with this vote. A lot of people feel like he's way too close to Betty. They don't feel like they have him. They feel like he prioritizes Betty over them, and he doesn't. He doesn't even have the benefit of the person they think he's tight with, because he's not that tight with Betty. The person he's tight with is Kevin. And being tight with Kevin is not that great for anybody but Kevin. Unfortunately, I think Helena benefits the most because Helena is the person that Kevin is most loyal to. But despite the fact that Kevin pitches this whole thing to Josh about the three of them making a run, he tells Helena today, I mean, we're not actually going to take a run with Josh. Are you kidding me? We're cutting him at like 7. That guy's going to cream us in the end. That's not great considering that Josh is really like relying on Kevin if he goes with this plan, because he's been kind of losing his social pull with a lot of the people in the house. And if he doesn't go along with the vote, then he's really showing that he is on that side. And he's just at that point being placed there by Kevin to be his inside man, which doesn't benefit Josh in any way other than just giving advantage to Kevin. Josh should be like, hey, I'm willing to flip with you guys. I'm totally on board. Keep me in your relationships and conversations because I want to have as many relationships and conversations as possible. That's why I liked his game so much last week. I don't like the direction he's heading this week. I love Josh, and I love how excited he got about Kevin's plan. And if Kevin was like super down and genuine about it, I'd be all about it. And I'd be like, this is amazing. I think Josh is the Lisa of this season. I think the problem is that I think Kevin understands that you take Lisa out and you don't boot Amy. You boot Lisa and you keep Amy. And so I think that's very dangerous for Josh. I have to go down to a 6 for Josh with the audience here. I think I would need from him to get back in with people like Jace and Marty. His connection to Marty was so valuable, and he's let it completely go by the wayside, and I just really don't like that from Josh. But it's not like he's going home anytime soon or anything like that. But, I think Helena's on the rise. I think Josh dropping a little bit for me here. Melissa, what say you?
I totally see what you're saying. I kind of agree with Aysha on this one. I just feel like maybe it's like completely wishful thinking here and thinking that like, oh, the Kevin, Helena, Josh thing could really work. But like, I do feel like Josh socially, when he tries, is very good. People want to work with him even when he doesn't try. Like, I feel like people just like him and gravitate towards him, and he's constantly being brought up as like, let's bring in Josh. So I just think that Josh, people will want to work with him. He'll have these potential like outs or other connections. And then on top of that, to have Helena and Kevin while they are a thing, like maybe it's not going to last forever, obviously, but like, I do think that they could make some real serious moves and create some damage and chaos and et cetera, blah, blah, blah. But while working together. And I think that's great for him. I think, yes, maybe this is like not a great week for him socially, but I do think that generally I'm seeing more of the player from him than I was last week. I felt like last week it was like people are all like working around him, but I wasn't really seeing him do anything. Now I feel like I am seeing him do more. And I think that, the fact that I keep hearing his name being brought up, like as a good thing, not as a, we want to get him out. I totally get that. It's like, people are starting to get concerned, like maybe he's dropping off in terms of social like interaction this week, but people still want to work with him. And I think that if he just turns it back, he'll be back in with everybody. So I really do see it in him. I'm giving him the 7 mainly because I want to see how this goes moving forward. I think it's really good for him. But who knows? Next week he may be down to a 4. I don't know. So I'm giving him the 7. Benefit of the doubt. Let's go.
There we go. Josh is going to move up this week to a 7. Let's talk about Kevin. How do we feel about
the man of the hour,
Kevin? Well, let's start with the audience. The audience last week gave Kevin a 6. This week, they're up to an 8 on Kevin.
That's a huge jump for the audience.
On Kevin. It is a big jump from the audience.
Wow.
And I mean, I also feel very good about Kevin. I mean, where I feel like Josh, in my eyes, has moved down this week, I do think that Kevin has moved up. I think that Kevin benefits from Josh's loss just as much as Kevin benefits from Jess's loss, just as much as Kevin benefits from Summer's loss, as we'll talk about. Kevin is benefiting from everybody else losing this week, and he's a large part of why all of them are losing this week. And so I mean, I think we have to give Kevin a lot of credit. This is definitely Kevin at the top of his game. This is definitely the best week he's had. The manipulation that he is running on Jess is impressive enough. He is absolutely running their HOH. That alone is like top tier stuff. That's great. The work he put in to dismantle Summer's game this week has also been very impressive. Summer was in an outstanding position last week. I was very high on Summer, and Kevin has been the driving force behind making sure that she is not in a good place anymore, socially or strategically. That's very impressive. He has also been continuing to work on his relationships. He's got a lot of influence over Marty, and Marty is a very valuable piece on the board that he is able to direct decently well. He's gotten in with Geno and Jace well enough that he's able to work them. He's got he's obviously got Josh as well. I mean, again, being able to position Josh on this side, convincing Josh to vote against the majority just to benefit Kevin's game is pretty impressive. And the way that he pitched it to Josh is not like how anybody else in this game would ever pitch anything to Josh, because they'd have no idea that that's what Josh would respond to. But Kevin did know that that's what Josh would respond to, and he responded to it. Fantastic stuff from Kevin there. And his overall game plan is good for him. Now, I don't know that his split vote will end up going through. I do think that there's a good chance that people like Herman and eventually Josh will end up flipping back over and making it more of a majority thing. That wouldn't be the best thing in the world for Kevin. But I do think that what he's attempting here is very impressive. I think that his social game has been on point. I think that his biggest flaw right now in the game is that you do still have somebody like Herman who is continuing to eye Kevin a lot. I think that Herman leaving would have been best case scenario for Kevin this week. Tanisha leaving is probably second best case scenario. And for all of those reasons, I mean, I'm gonna go. I gave Summer the 9 last week because she was in an 8 position, but performed very well over the course of the week. I'm gonna do the same for Kevin this week. I think he's in an 8 position, but I'm very impressed with some of the maneuvers he's pulled off this week, and I'm gonna give him the 9. Melissa, what are your thoughts?
So I absolutely agree with everything you're saying. I was going to give him the 8, but now I kind of want to give him the 9 because I feel like this has been consistent. It's like he pulled off some great moves in the past, and we've been like, wow, that's great. Good job, Kevin. But, we'll see how this shakes out. And I feel like every week he's been pulling off these, wild moves and these very exciting plays. And it's just been so great to watch. I'm absolutely loving Kevin. I think what he's doing is really impressive and well done. I mean, the way that he is able to pull these things off and still kind of maintain that persona of like, I'm just kind of causing chaos and who knows, I don't care. It's like, it's amazing. I'm very impressed by him. And so, I was going to give him the 8, but honestly, yeah, I want to give him the 9 because it's just like, it's not just a one-off thing. It's not like, oh, this week he did a really impressive maneuver. It's like, he's done this in the past. He's been very impressive throughout. And I feel like he will go into the next week in a much better spot than he came into it. And I just am impressed. So I'm giving him a 9.
Valid points. Those are all valid points. Mm-hmm. I came into this with a solid 8 for Kevin, but he's literally been so consistent. Like he's been so creative and adaptable even thinking about Geno's HOH with coming in as Andrew, like he's like, I have to do something that's going to appeal to Geno. And then with Jess, okay, I need to appeal to Jess. I know I am Jess's number one, so I have to appeal to what Jess needs, say what Jess needs to hear to make them feel comfortable. And I feel like Kevin has done a wonderful job of just adapting week to week and realizing what he needs to do given who's in the house. And so I'm super impressed too. I really liking what I'm seeing from Kevin. Have we talked about this beard he's growing? Like
I've seen so many people on Twitter being like, okay, Kevin's a hottie now. It's like, whoa, okay.
Right?
I love it.
He's just like, he's just, changing he's trying new things. I love someone who's not just rigid and thinks that, oh, I have to play this way because I'm such a huge fan of the show. I think Kevin is able to pick up all these little things from his Big Brother knowledge and implement them in a way that, like, he shows that he knows the game really well. And I think we may begin to see over time that he is like you described, Taran, you said he's the Danielle, right? Yeah. So it's just like, okay, if he, we may look back on this season and say like, oh, wow, Kevin was far above and beyond. Like we've been seeing these people on a pretty even playing field, but the things that Kevin's doing, I'm not even sure what more he's capable of. So I'm really excited to see that. Right. And so y'all convinced me. I'll go with the 9.
There you go. Yes, and I made the comparison to Danielle and Jason this morning. The important caveat, of course, is like if they pull it off, right? Like if it's successful. But the attempt is certainly reminding me a lot of them. But there you go, up to a 9 for Kevin this week. Watch him be gone next week in the double
eviction. Yeah,
but that's the thing. It's hard to find a scenario where he goes home in the double. But given that things could change based on this vote, nothing's impossible. But we will see. Let's talk about Marty. How do we feel about Marty? I think it's going to be me that kicks this one off. How do I feel about Marty? I don't feel great about Marty. This was obviously like Marty. Here's the thing. Marty continues to get his way. Josh went up on the block. Marty wanted Kyle up on the block. Marty now wanted Tanisha on the block. He wanted Tanisha to go home. He's getting his way. He's getting what he wants. The problem is that what he wants isn't necessarily what's good for him all the time. And he's very, very public about what he wants. So everybody sees that he's getting what he wants, and they find that very dangerous. The only reason he's like entrenched in anything at all is because people see him as very valuable to them because he's not a great player and he's very like out there and a big target in front of them, and he's winning competitions. And that's his problem. He's out there and has a big target. And a lot of people are looking at him as somebody that could go up on the block or somebody that could go home. I could easily see, if Summer or Betty were to win in HOH, I could easily see Marty going up there. I mean, he does have the smarty thing with Summer, but she's talked about taking that shot. Betty's talked about taking that shot. And his relationship with Josh is starting to go down a little bit. I don't actually think Marty will go home in the double. I do think that Marty's decently as long as Betty doesn't win, I think he's probably okay. But his long-term prospects for me are not great. And like the way that he operates through the game, like he had no business getting in trouble this week. He had no business having people talk about how he's the problem and he's the one that got Tanisha on the block. Why is Marty involved in this at all? Like, why is Marty bragging to people that he talked to Jess about getting Tanisha on the block? Why does Jess feel like it's appropriate to throw Marty under the bus that Marty's the one that got Tanisha on the block? Because nobody values him in that way. And for some reason on a Jess HOH, he's getting a ton of the blame as well, which is very typical of Marty in this game. So for me, I'm a 4. I'm a 4 on Marty. It's up from last week. I feel like his positioning is better than it was last week in how safe he is with only really Betty like fully coming for him. But I would not be surprised if he was gone next week. I would not be surprised if he was on the block as a target next week. And I would be surprised if he won this game at this point in time. So that's where I'm at for Marty. Melissa, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I agree. He's a 4 for me as well. I think his biggest weakness is himself. I think that he gets himself into these bad positions. He talks too much. He says too many things. And he just, I just don't feel like he's in such a great spot in the house. And I do think he could be a potential target, even in the double. Who knows? So, yeah, I don't know how it's going to pan out moving forward. But at this point, he's a 4.
All right, Aysha, what do you think?
Yeah, y'all said it all. I think Marty, I feel like he's just kind of like a lone wolf right now, and we're too deep into the game for you not to have one person that's willing to stick their neck out for you. So it's just like, what's his game plan moving forward? Besides, it just can't be winning comps, and it can't just be, oh well, I talked to this person, like we have good, like a good social relationship. There has to be a little bit more. And I think that's what Marty needs, is at least 1 or 2 strong allies, people that care that he leaves the game. I think that there's not one person that is going to be heartbroken that he left, besides the fact that, oh, Marty's a nice guy, I enjoy talking to him in the kitchen. But it's like, oh, is anyone saying like, oh, if Marty leaves, my game is ruined, my game is over? It's like, no one, he's not anybody's number one right now. And I think that's really dangerous, especially with this unpredictable double coming our way. So I agree with y'all, and I'll give him a 4 as well.
All right, well, the audience is actually a little bit higher on Marty than we are. The audience gave him a 5. So there you go. A 5 from the audience for Marty. Let's talk about Moose. How do we feel about Moose? Melissa, what are your thoughts on Moose?
Yeah, I mean, obviously not that great, because he was put on the block. He got into a fight with both Jess and Betty. He, he's still on the block at the end of the week. And, there's a total possibility that this flip isn't going to go through and then he goes home. I mean, the odds are the flip will happen. Tanisha will go, but, there's still a possibility he is still on the block. However, if he does survive this week, I do think that he has people who are interested in working with him moving forward. I think that obviously, like, the Betty Jess situation wasn't good for him, but I don't think it really cost him that much in terms of other people in the house wanting to work with him. I think he did put himself in kind of a weird position where he, said he would go after Betty and Kevin, and then like told them and told Kevin, like, yeah, I said your name, but it's not real. It's like, well, you still said my name. I don't know. It's just, he's not really doing the right things. But he does still have people who want to work with him. So I guess that's good moving forward. And I do think that, like, generally he can do a pretty good job of, talking to people. So I think that he's got that going for him, although he didn't do so great this week. But yeah, so at this point, I'm going to give him a 4.
All right, Aysha, what do you think?
Yeah, Moose is a tough one because I almost have those like rose-colored glasses that the other house guests have, that like, oh, he's doing all these things and we just don't know it. And it's just like, maybe there just really isn't that much more to it than what he's giving off, of just that, he doesn't know the game that well. He's just kind of, seeing what he can do. He was doing a lot in the beginning, but ever since that was kind of called out by Kyle, it's just kind of like, he's just kind of, it sucked the life out of him. It seems like he's not the same Moose we saw. So I think, I really hope that if this flip comes through and he stays, that was a wake up call for him. And he's able to see, look, okay, that was too close. I almost left. I need to do something. I need to pull together the people that I do have strong relationships with, or I need to assess the house to see where I can plug myself in. So, but that's all hypothetical. That's just like, what if he does this? It's not showing anything that he is currently capable of. And, we also have to take into consideration the fact that he almost could be going home. He wasn't the initial target, but he could Jess's sole purpose was to nominate somebody close to Moose so that Moose could go home. So I don't know. It was a very close call, and I could see other people putting Moose up as well. So I'm struggling between I'm struggling between a 3 and a 4 because honestly, I do see him easily. I think it will be a very easy situation for someone to put up Moose, just like it is for someone to put up Jace or Jess. So I'm just like, I think last week he was a 5. This week he ended up on the block, and he's being saved by no doing of his own. He's still campaigning. This is really Kevin's doing. So, this is tough. I'll go with I'm gonna go with the 3.
A 3 from Aysha. There you go. The audience went with a 4. But I think I'm more with you, Aysha, on this one. I was with you. I was between a 3 or a 4 for Moose because if I were to go with the 4, the reasoning would be more on the side of like, if he survives and he continues what he's doing, where he's kind of like locking in votes from the other side and kind of promising them safety, then hopefully he's in a position where he can kind of play the middle a little bit, or at least be in the spot where like Herman is trying to be, where, people on that side don't have to look at Moose a ton. They can look at Herman instead. They can look at even like maybe Betty or Summer instead. But I don't know like how solid that is, and I also don't know for sure that he stays. But I don't hate where he's coming out of this week, where he kind of can like look at Herman as a bigger target. Maybe he can like work his way into something else, especially since he's been so under the radar. He kind of has a clean slate for some people, not for Jess. But the reasons I do have to go with a 3, I think, are a lot of the things that, that's projecting into the future. If I'm looking at what has actually happened to this point, it's a lot of negative. He did end up on the block. He lost the veto. He definitely could have very easily gone home. And part of that would have been his fault. Naming those names unnecessarily was a rookie mistake. Getting into a fight about it afterward, kind of another rookie mistake. He didn't need to. He didn't need to make that case in front of, in front of Jess in the way that he did. I think he should have had a private conversation with Betty, and I know that Jess pulled him in, and I don't fault him for that argument in any way. But strategically, I think he needed to keep Jess on his side if he wanted the best chance of staying, and he did not. And he lost the support of some of his allies briefly. He got it back. But just like overall the messiness, you look at Herman and you look at Moose, and Moose is just making so many rookie mistakes compared to Herman, who is playing a lot more solidly, not naming names, not getting into arguments with people. And it's just not great. It's not great for Moose. And on top of that, he still could theoretically go home this week. It's looking pretty good for him that he will stay. But this house is very fluid and lots of things can happen. And Jess could change their mind after another conversation with Moose. And who knows how that changes things. And Moose could get into an argument with Betty again, theoretically. Like they've patched things up for now. But Betty might be like, hold on. I just remembered that you also said this thing about me. You know what I mean? Or like, honestly, Betty could get mad at Moose for campaigning because he kind of told Betty that he wasn't going to campaign. So there are any number of things that could go wrong here. Not that getting into an argument with Betty would send him home this week, but it's just, it hasn't been a great week for Moose. I think you're probably looking at Moose now at a 4 overall. This probably might be a good time to buy low. I think Moose could be on the rise, but I could also see Moose heading home on Thursday one way or another, right? In this double eviction. Like, it is a dangerous spot for him, and he still has a long way to go before he climbs this chaotic ladder. So
yeah. On that point, I do think that that's a dangerous thing, that if Moose says one thing and Jess is like, oh no, I need him to go, and Kevin's already so sold on this flip, I think that could be a little bit of a dangerous situation, because then Jess is going to see it as Kevin betraying them. And that's not a great position moving forward, but that doesn't mean, obviously Jess can't win HOH next week. So Kevin's not in immediate danger, but I just wonder how that'll play out because we still do have 2 more days.
Yeah. Well, Aysha, let's talk about Summer. How do we feel about Summer, Aysha?
My girl Summer, I love her. She's so enjoyable to watch, but she is losing her number 1. And that is not a great situation to be in. But like I said earlier, I think this is going to help her in the game. I think it's going to help her socially. She's already doing a great job socially. So imagine all the time she spent with Tanisha being spread across the house. Maybe she'll be a little bit more in touch with other things that are going on and be able to realize, oh, these people, I may, she may be able to see that Geno is feeling a type of way towards her, and maybe able to help that situation. And maybe, this I think we're just going to be able to see a little bit more of Summer spreading her wings, right? And she was doing in such a great position last week. And for Kevin to be on to her and understanding that she is playing a great game, that is dangerous. But it's just like, okay, it's really hard to be playing a great game for a long period of time, I think, without someone noticing. I mean, we've seen people do it, but in this house full of people who are here to play, that wasn't going to happen. But I don't think she's in a terrible position. I don't see her going home anytime soon. It's still people understanding like, oh, we do need to go after Summer, but not right now. Like, I'll put up some people, the people that she's close to, but not Summer just yet. And I think if you do that long enough, she will finally, get herself in a position where, it's no longer, oh, we need to put her up. We can look at other people because we need Summer for the numbers, right? And so it will help her with Tanisha going out because they're not going to say, oh, to get Tanisha out, we need to put up Tanisha and Summer. So because of that, I still see her in a good position. So I still will give her a 7.
A 7 from Aysha. Well, the audience did come close to a 7, but they went with a 6 for Aysha for Summer
Aysha.
this week. Aysha gave the 7. So Summer down to a 6 from the audience, and yeah, I mean, I agree, Aysha, that I think that Summer can bounce back from this. I think that again, I think like this is potentially the kick that she needed to really start trying to win HOHs. I think one HOH could be all that it takes to turn this around. But some of the faults in her game that I saw before, primarily that she didn't want to win competitions before, Herman has really kind of been fed up with that, and that has not been great. Now, I don't think that the relationship with Herman is something that can't be repaired.
Yeah.
So especially if she were to win power, if she were to win something, I think Herman would absolutely come running. If Betty were to win something, I think Herman would come running. I think a lot of people would come running. And so she still has some allies. And I think the primary thing that I'm looking at is that she still has her social game ability. Like, it's been muted this week because Tanisha's leaving, and Tanisha leaving is a huge blow to her game. But I definitely don't see her as out of this by any means. I mean, if we're comparing this to season Big Brother Canada 6, then like Summer is one of the pillars of strategy here. Like, she's taking a blow, but you should not count her out by any means, especially if they don't bother taking her out next week because they're too focused on Herman or Moose or even Betty. And not a lot of people are looking at like specifically taking Summer out of the game. A lot of them do still feel like, despite the fact that I don't feel great about Summer right now, she's still somebody that I could theoretically work with in the future. So for all of those reasons, and for the faith I have in her as a player, I'm going to go with the 6. I couldn't quite go to the 7 this week for Summer. I think losing Tanisha for me, I'm big on allies. Having allies is good. Losing allies is bad. And even though I have a lot of faith in Summer, losing an ally is not great. So I went with a 6. Melissa, what say you?
Yeah, I agree with what both of you guys were saying. I think I have to rely on the fact that at the beginning of this podcast, we talked about how this is both a positive and a negative for her with Tanisha going, in that they currently see people in the house currently view them as a duo, with Tanisha being the strategist and Summer really not, even though it's the reverse. And so I think with Tanisha going, as much as it's like, yeah, she's losing an ally, at the same time, she's losing a big target. So I think that it might actually benefit her, because she is so good socially, that I think that unlike certain situations where, you know, someone's number one is going out of the house and it's like, oh no, what are they going to do? They're alone now. I do think Summer has the ability to fit in with anybody if she wants to. And so I think this could end up being really good for her, because people see Tanisha as the strategist and target, and Summer as not the strategist. So she can use that and kind of maneuver her way into another group and not be seen as such a threat, is the hope. And because I feel like I have faith in her as a player, I'm going to give her the 7. It's possible it goes down next week, but at this point, I am going to stick with the 7, just because I think she can pull this one off.
There you go. Summer is going to land the 7. I'll spoil something right now. I forgot to do my buying and selling this week, which meant that I kept Summer. And let me tell you, I've been expecting a big loss all podcast, and you two just saved me. So
you're welcome, Taran. You're welcome. We did this for you. It's all for you, Taran.
I've never been more glad that you disagree with me. So
happy birthday.
That's right. All right, let's move on and talk about our likely evictee this week, Tanisha. We will start with the audience on this one. Tanisha got a 3 from the audience. So not great. I think for myself, it's tough. I don't think Tanisha did anything like specifically terrible to get herself nominated or even get herself flipped on. She really hasn't done anything that bad in the game. I don't think she's been like a great player, but I also don't think she's been a terrible player. I think that she's kind of gotten unlucky that, like, you know, Josh doesn't talk to a lot of people. Tanisha doesn't talk to a lot of people. The problem is that Tanisha had a good friend in Summer, and Summer was playing well. And because she was so visibly connected to some other people, she got into some hot water, whereas Josh had a little bit more of a clean slate to work from, and to make some allies. I think this was like some bad luck that Herman wins this veto. If it had been Moose that had won the veto, I think we could be looking at Herman leaving instead of Tanisha. Like it took a specific scenario. I don't think she's played great. I think she has made mistakes. I wish she would have tried to talk to Jess more. I don't know that it would have helped, but given the fact that it apparently did take a 2-hour conversation from Marty in the middle of the night to make sure that Tanisha went on the block, maybe it could have helped if she had tried talking more with Jess. Who knows? So, you know, I don't think that it's like completely faultless from Tanisha either this week or in general, but I also don't feel like I should go as low as a 2. I'm also at a 3 with Tanisha. I just feel like, you know, wasn't the best player, but also kind of got unlucky here. And you know, so far has not done enough to prevent this flip from happening. So, Melissa, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm going to give her a 2. I think that she's a nice person, and I think that she, you know, I think you're right in that she got unlucky and that people view her as a strategist and they view her a specific way when really that's not the case. However, you know, she is on the block and she's not really doing anything to make it so that she doesn't go home. I feel like this could be the time that she really steps up and really makes it so that she stays this week. It could be an easy situation. I mean, it's Moose on the block. He's a big threat. And she's just not doing it. I don't know whether she just doesn't think that she needs to or whether she's actually not capable of doing it. I don't know. But to me, that's a 2. I think she's going home, and yeah.
All right. Aysha.
Yeah, I've been in between a 2 and a 3. That's my main thing. Same thing that you just said, Melissa, is the fact that she's not fighting. And, you know, they have been elevating her so much, just continuing to talk about her and how she is just the head of what's going on the other side of the house. And it's just like, now that she's on the block, and it's just like, okay, we're kind of expecting a little bit more from her, just because, I mean, she has been pleasant to watch, but then it's just like, are you just going to allow this to happen? Then there's a part of me that's like, well, maybe she just doesn't want to do it too early. Maybe she just wants, to get closer to the eviction, so she's fresh in everybody's mind. But I think it might just be that, oh, how could they send me home over Moose? Like, Moose is a big target. He's the one winning stuff. Like, I would send Moose home over me. And so I think that she's just kind of not reading the house well to be able to see, look, there are things she could say. There are things she could do. There are people she could bring together to really amplify the target that is on Moose, to realize, look, there shouldn't be a situation where I go home, because why? But she's not doing that. So that's because I don't know why. So I have to go with the 2 as well.
All right. A 2 for Tanisha is a 3 overall. And that is the stock watch for the week. Oh boy.
Ooh.
Oh boy. There we go. Some changes. Lots of movement. It looks like most people moved either up or down. Only Herman and Marty stayed the same.
Wow.
So there you go. Interesting stuff here on the stock watch. Let's see what this has done to the leaderboard. This is
I forgot to do anything.
I know, I forgot to do. I was. Let me tell you, this obviously doesn't mean anything. I was planning to buy Josh if I had remembered, which is not the best buy of the week, but did make some hefty profit. Kevin, I believe, was the best buy of the week, considering the jump up to a 9. So here is the leaderboard from last week. Let's see if it's updated here for this week. I don't think it changed. Okay, we'll continue to wait as we talk through the rest of this podcast. Any final thoughts on the week here, Melissa? Anything left to say?
I think that it's been a pretty good week in terms of, there's been a lot going on. There's been drama with all the, the Moose and the Betty and the Jess and the this and that. And then there's also, great strategy with Kevin, pulling off this potential flip. So I think there's been a lot there. I think that, it's going to be interesting to see how this week pans out, especially with the double or whatever it may be, whatever kind of double it may be.
Do we have any speculation on is it worth talking about? Because I just feel like, personally, I'm like, who knows?
Yeah, I have no idea.
I mean, the only thing would be to, like y'all speculated, what would be to do something from a past season. I think, if you're doing all these throwbacks, why would they do something new and inventive? I mean, I guess, they are doing the game show theme. So maybe it's something like that, where there are 2 people evicted, but then they have to do some type of game show style thing to come back in or something. But I think it might be a throwback to a past double.
We'll see. We do have an updated leaderboard here. Kelly in the lead, having gone in on Kevin here, with looks like Mel.
Look at Mel.
Mel in 4th place.
Wow.
Look at that.
I think that might be the highest like a podcaster has been, aside from Taran, obviously. Whatever. Leaving that out.
Non-Taran podcaster.
He doesn't count. I mean, like a person who's actually like a person and not a robot, who just lives and breathes stock watch. I mean, like a real podcaster person.
All right, let's see what kind of damage I got.
700.
700.
Oh my
Not
God,
great.
Taran. This is like
Not
the
great.
worst you've been.
I moved down a bit here.
Oh no!
You can see
man.
I just kept the 20 shares of. I didn't even buy more summer. It was just nothing of a move. This is still top 50%. That's not the worst.
That's good.
Melissa,
Oh, I'm top
definitely doing
Melissa.
much better. You kept your shares of Helena and Kevin, which was great for you this week.
Yeah, luckily.
There you
I
go.
just didn't buy any more. I should have.
There you go.
How much did I go up or down? Can you click on it?
Let's see here. You moved up 141
Oh, wow.
Wow,
rankings.
okay,
You made
all
over
right.
$100.
Wow.
That was a very
Wow.
good forgetful
Yeah,
move for you.
Right.
Yeah, if I'm gonna forget any week, at least I have those guys.
Right.
All right. What's Aysha up to here? Aysha went in on Summer.
Yeah,
Not good.
I had all Josh last week, and then I said,
Ooh.
"Oh, I should change it and go all in on Summer."
Oh no.
Then I had another thought that maybe I should switch it back, and I forgot to go back and switch it. So I did the opposite of you guys, and I was in there too much. It messed me up.
Yeah. Jeez. Man, I am killing it.
Killing
So
it.
well.
These Kevin people made $240 for Kelly here in
Wow.
first place. Look at that. Top 10%er from BB22. All right. That's what we've got for the stock watch. Okay. Melissa, continue your final thought. We interrupted you. If you have a continue.
Nope.
Okay. Aysha, any final thoughts on the week?
No, I'm just loving this season. I'm really enjoying it. You know, it's nice when you can enjoy the feeds and the episodes. You know, we rarely get that. So I think that's been very pleasant. And then usually, you know, like most of the people I know watch like US Big Brother, and then, you know, I know people within RHAP that watch Big Brother Canada, but I don't have many other friends that watch Big Brother Canada. But like my mom watches, and she watches feeds, but she watches a little bit of less feeds because she's a teacher. So like US Big Brother's in the summer, so she watched way more feeds then.
Yeah.
But it's nice when she's texting me catching up on like, oh, did you see what happened on the feeds? Like, aren't you at school? But it's been really enjoyable. So I hope it. I hope we're not jinxing it, just talking so highly about this season. But I am really enjoying that week to week. It's not the same person that, you know, is being rated the highest. And so that's just made for really pleasant viewing experience. So that's it.
All right. Well, that's what we have for you this week on the Big Brother Canada 10 Roundtable podcast. We'll be back next week on another Tuesday night to update you next week on where everyone stands. The double eviction is going to be huge, so make sure you tune into the Twitch stream. I will be streaming on Thursday during the day before the eviction. Twitch.tv/Taran Armstrong, running through as many scenarios as we can for the double eviction, trying to pick who to buy this week because it's gonna be risky. So that should be interesting. Of course, check out the live feed updates every morning at 11 a.m. Eastern. And tomorrow I will also be live on Twitch watching the Wednesday night episode of Big Brother Canada, as well as the Survivor episode. Then we'll recap it afterward, and then we'll do it all over again on Thursday. So check all of that out. Check out the Taran show with Peridium this week. And Taran show coming up soon. I just finished talking with Big Brother 23 Claire for this week's Taran show. So make sure you stay tuned for that one. It was a lot of fun talking with Claire. Find me over on Twitter at Armstrong Taran, and do all the things. Aysha, where can people find you?
Yeah, y'all can find me on Twitter at Aysha, like Aysha, AYSHA, like ASIA. Really excited this weekend on Saturday. I'm turning 30. So I'm very pumped about that, being in this new phase of life. People say your 30s are the best time of your life. That's what I hear.
Pretty good. They're pretty good, I would
Okay.
say. So far. I'm not that far into it, but, you know, so far.
Yeah.
Pretty good.
Yeah. So excited about that. And outside of that, continue to podcast about Married at First Sight. Go subscribe to the Love at First Sight feed. Talking about Married at First Sight with Jason Reed. We took a break last week because it was a non-episode. And so this week we'll be back talking about episode 12. Very excited about that. And if you subscribe to the Love at First Sight feed, you will be the first to know about future Love is Blind content with Frail Mary. And so just go subscribe, and then you'll be the first to know when the podcast drop.
There you go. You can, of course, find Melissa at It's Melissa with 3. Wait, hold on. It's 3. 3 A's. Thank you all so much for joining us here today, and we will see all of you next time.